Nomad Podcast.
So, hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Nomad Podcast. And today I have General Kenobi here joining us. So, I'm gonna call you Knopes, because that's like the easiest way instead of always calling you General Kenobi. And
Kenobi.
Knopes, I
That
know
also
you
works.
started the. Okay, that works. Okay. No, I'm confused. Fuck. Knopes. I'm gonna call you Knopes because that's easier for me. So, Knopes, how did you get into Bitcoin, and what word would you use to describe your Bitcoin journey? Because that's always interesting. Because whenever I ask people, what word would you describe to, for your Bitcoin journey, they're always like, oh, well, it's chaotic, it's kind of funny, strange. So what word would you use to that, and how did you get into Bitcoin?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. And that's a very good question, actually. I've never actually had to describe my Bitcoin journey in one word. I guess I'll have to think about that word while I'm explaining it. But basically, my Bitcoin journey, well, it's good to know that I'm half Spanish, half German, because my journey started in Spain, but it was completed in Germany, so to speak, due to how life worked. It was during COVID. During COVID, there were a lot of scams, especially here in Spain, a lot of like Ponzi scheme, crypto. Well, the Ponzi schemes that were using crypto as a smokescreen. And well, I was at that point basically unaware of any of this. I was like 20 years old, just getting started with studying economics. And yeah, I kind of fell for one of them. I put half, I like to always say, like, I put half of my money in it. But I mean, I was 20 years old, a student. I only had like 2,000 euros. So I put 1,000 euros, which the good part is that my reasoning for putting the money there, even though I knew, like, investing comes with risk and all that, was actually the right mindset, which is the fact that right now 1,000 euros for me means nothing. And if I lose it, so it's an asymmetric bet. If I lose it, well, worst case scenario, I lost 1,000 euros. 1,000 euros right now is quite a lot, but I know that in 5-10 years, it's not going to be that hard to make. Like, I'm studying economics, I'm most likely going to have a good job, or at least a job, or even if I was a waiter, I would be able to like make it back. But if this 1,000 euros, if this scam, well, now we know it's a scam, but back then, you're analyzing like a potential investment. If it works out, hey man, that 1,000 euros could be something sizable. It could be a house. Well, of course, the scam turned out to be a scam. Surprising, but on the way, I managed to like, instead of like a lot of people in Spain at that time, especially younger men getting into these financial investments, they just get lost in the numbers and in trading and in trying to make more money and make more dollars. But for me, I was more interested on like the technology, like how it worked, why it worked, why it was like this, why it was so volatile, what's there's always this like rumbling about like, oh, crypto in the background, right? And I had heard about it, and I never dug deep, so I started to dug deep. And that, of course, looking back, I barely scratched the surface, but I got into like a bit of cryptography, how the blockchain works, like actually how these decentralized markets the what would it call, like Sushi Swap and Uniswap and all of those, and also how the cryptography makes everything secure and why it's important. I started to get into that, and that really sparked something inside of me, and I was like, okay. Like, after a year of doing the investment, or actually less, by May. So I did the investment around August of 2020, and by May I had already decided my future is going to be in I'm going to say the dirty word, crypto industry. Now I know it's in the Bitcoin industry, but anyway, and I knew, hey, I want to be in this industry because it looks exciting. It looks like it's the future. It's not the past. It's not like banking. It's not like insurance. That's boring, So I told my dad, and then through a coincidence of happenstance, I guess. I mean, it's the whole, like, if you put it out to the world, to the universe will give you back. I told him, hey, I want to work in this industry, and a few days later, he got back to me like, hey, look, I know this guy of a guy of a guy, a friend of a friend of a friend. He works in a Bitcoin, well, he called it crypto mining plus high performance computing company, and they're looking for an investor relations person, like someone who takes care of like their, like more markets facing interactions. I was like, let's go. Let's do that. Summer internship. Why not? It also makes sense because it's in Germany. It was in a city close to where I was going to do my Erasmus. So I was going to do my exchange nearby. So it kind of all fit in perfectly. I ended up going for the summer, like a quick interview. We did the internship, the interview he like the guy who like interviewed me, he was positive about it, and I was like, let's go, let's do this. I'll be there, and let's figure it out. Basically, he finished the call saying, "Can you be here? Can you be in Frankfurt in 3 weeks?" And I was like, "Yes, of course, of course." And then I had to call my dad and be like, "Dad, I got to be in Frankfurt in 3 weeks, living for 2 months. I don't want to live in a hostel. Like, how do we do this?" And we managed to like get me a small apartment there from a contact of a friend of his. Um, and yeah, I just started working at a Bitcoin company. And I thought, wow, I'm going to learn so much from so many people inside the industry. But what I realized is that out of the 60 people that we were in the company at that point, I was the third person that knew about Bitcoin. Like the rest, they were just like, yeah, the rest were just like a legal team that just knows about law and then also does a bit of Bitcoin, finance team that knows about finance, but then also does a bit about like Bitcoin. Yeah, because if you think about it, it's much easier to like hire someone, a regular finance guy, and tell him a few things about Bitcoin than it is to find a Bitcoin finance guy or a Bitcoiner that is also the type of financial guy. And the same for law and the same for operations type of people, project managers, right? It's better to like take normal people, so to speak, and put them into the Bitcoin industry than find someone that is already part of that. So when I saw that, the most worried I got, like I got the most worried about like the finance team because I was like, these guys are moving a couple coins a day, and someday they're gonna make a mistake and they're gonna look for the like hotline, like Bitcoin support hotline, and it's not there, and they will have to realize that they burned their Bitcoin. Um, so I basically said, look, before I leave for my Erasmus, before I finish this internship, I'll give a presentation about how Bitcoin actually works, the internals. And that's when I actually had to really dig deep into each component of how Bitcoin works. And I still remember the day when I understood how proof of work works. That's a mouthful, but how the proof of work mechanism works. And the day where like I was reading it and I was thinking about it very deeply, like, okay, why did he do it like this? Why did Satoshi Nakamoto do it like this? Why not the other methods? And when it clicked, man, I still remember it was, like galaxy brain, like my brain basically exploded. And I still remember for like, yeah, and I still remember for like 3 weeks. And this is not a joke. For 3 weeks, my brain wouldn't shut up. Like I was constantly thinking and like crunching things and like relating stuff and like, how does this affect that? And what does it mean? And then also like, hey, I just pulled the curtain on the Wizard of Oz, right? Like it's just a guy. You just realize, Jesus Christ, the dollar, the euro, it's fake, it's false, it's like, it's worse, it's fraudulent. Like, wow, that was a moment. And that's when I became a Bitcoiner. I sold all of my shitcoin bags that I had, like, basically on a loss. But I realized that, hey, it's better to, like, get the sats now than to, like, I don't know, fucking go to the casino. So yeah, that's what happened. The summer of 2021. Shortly after I created my Twitter account, my my pseudonym, General Kenobi, and I started engaging the community. After that, I ended up working for a whole week. I gave the presentation. They loved it so much that they were like, stick around. So I stuck around. I left college for aside for a while, for a year, and I worked there. That's how I got my footing in the mining industry. And after that, I went back to Spain, finished my studies because that's something I wanted to, like, get it behind me, and that's it. Um, and while I was doing that, I started going to conferences and also organizing the meetups here in Barcelona. So yeah, that's more or less it. And for the like, that's how I became Bitcoiner, and that's how I'm in the industry, and that's how, yeah, that's who I am. That's how I got here. That's how I became a Bitcoiner. But for a word, I don't know. Like,
I
a
would
word,
I would know one. I would say enlightenment because because you got enlightened
yeah,
by
or like
Bitcoin.
awakened. Because honestly,
Awakened.
dude, like it's a cliche. It's the cliche. Like every time, oh, you gotta wake up, and I hate it. But at the same time, I look back at my life before that click, because for me it was literally a
Yeah.
click. I know some other people, they have a more like slow movement towards Bitcoin, but for me, at some point it just clicked and it was like, bam, that's it. It's over. Like new life, so to speak, right? Um, I guess it would it's not a word, but it's sentence. Gradually then suddenly, I guess. But like no, I guess for one word I would say spontaneous. Spontaneous or awakening, but I would say spontaneous because like it was kind of like out of nowhere. Out of nowhere,
Yeah,
everything clicked at once, you know?
it just takes 1 second, and then there you go. It doesn't matter if that 1 second is a good second or a bad second. It just takes 1 second, and there you
Exactly.
go.
I mean, that
So,
second is preceded by hundreds of thousands of seconds of work and whatnot, but like you just
yeah.
need that 1 second of like realization and it's a before and after. So spontaneous, I would say.
Okay, spontaneous. That's good. So, Canopes, the topic of today's episode is actually mathematics.
Mhm.
And I remember in Bitcoin Atlantis in Madeira, yeah, you
Yes.
had on the kids panel, on the kids stage, you presented binary to children. And I thought that was really interesting. So my question now to you is when it comes to mathematics and binary, how does that connect to Bitcoin? And what would be the simplest way to explain it to people? Because especially binary is like a number system which like is not really always easy to understand, but there's probably a easy way to explain it to people. So what would be the easiest way to explain it to me as a child or as a newcomer into Bitcoin or a newcomer into mathematics in general, although that's not a kind of neat thing, mathematics, but you know what I mean, like the easiest way to explain it to a regular
And
person.
I personally think it's like with Bitcoin. Like
Okay.
everyone has a different way to like there's not just one Bitcoin explanation, right?
Yeah.
There's many angles. You can go from the human rights point of view. You can go from the philosophical point of view. I'm actually currently reading the book by Andrew Bailey and Craig Wormke
Hmm.
on like resistance money, right?
Yeah.
So that's the philosophical take. Then you have the economic take. Then you have the technological take, right? There's many ways, and everyone is going to get it in a different way, right? And I feel
Hmm.
like with binary, it's the same. I mean, you need to have some basis on mathematics, like you need to understand a little bit. Um, but basically, I think the best way to explain it is with images, which makes this a bit hard to explain to talk about in the sense of like once people see, because I don't know if you remember, but I had a slide that was like I put the decimal number system,
Yeah.
then the hexadecimal, and then the binary, and I showed you how they translated to each other and how they flow from one to the other. Because in a way, binary. Well, the best, I guess, the easiest way to explain it is like languages, right? Like
Hmm.
we are speaking English, but we could also be speaking in Spanish or in Italian or in Brazilian. Well, Brazilian Portuguese. That's the
Yeah.
whole thing there. Or in Hindi, or I don't know, in French, right? And the same words, they will have different equivalents, different translations in those
Yeah.
languages, right? And it's just a different way to say the same thing, you know? And binary is just that. It's a different way to express the same numbers. So I can say five, or I can say six, or which in the hexadecimal number system would be the same. And now it
Mhm.
escapes me what it was in the binary system. To one, it would be something like 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, I believe. That would be
Okay.
so the two, 0, 1, 2. There'll be four. That'll be four. Um, so if we wanted to do six, it would be 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. Anyway, sorry. These are like it's just how the
Okay.
math works because like the way that the binary system works is instead of just like every 10 numbers, so you have zero, then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you
Okay.
restart. You start from the beginning, but you put something in at first, right? You add something extra. Now you have a 1 in front of the 0, then you call it 10. Then you call, say,
Okay.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It's more obvious when you go into 20 because it's like, oh, we arrive at 19. Now we go back to 0, 19, 9, right? We go back to
Mhm.
0. But in this case, we have a 2 at the front, so we call it 20. But now
Yeah.
we go through the decimal system, number system again, and now it's 21, 22, 23. And we keep doing that, and we're able to like go infinitely because we can always put another number up front, right? We can say 221. We can say 2221, right? And once you run out of those numbers on that scale, then you just add another number at front, right? Once you go from 2000 to 3000, 4000, 5000, 6000, 7000, 8000, 9000,
Mhm.
What comes after 9? The 9 when you circle back, a 0. So then you put
Yeah.
a 1 in front of it. You have created, like, now your number is longer, right? You have created an extra position at the to the left of it at the beginning. And in binary, it works the same, but you only have two options. You only have yes or no, on or off, black or white. You can make many distinctions like that. Uh, in binary, it's usually 1 or 0. 1 indicates on, indicates yes, and 0 indicates off, indicates no, so to speak. And then instead of, okay, because now, see, you need to have a basis on mathematics at least, because you need to
Yeah,
know,
yeah. Otherwise, it's gonna be hard. Yeah.
yeah, you need to know what an exponential is. Because then what happens is each position, starting from the left, right, left, starting from the left, you add numbers, and each
Mhm.
number represents, if it's a 0, well, each number
Mhm.
represents the exponential of 2. So
Okay.
if you have so see, that's the thing with pictures, it's so easy because you can just see the
Yeah,
line.
yeah. With a picture, it'd probably easier,
Explaining
but
it is a bit
but
harder, but basically, um, if there's a 0 on that position, you have 2 elevated to 0.
okay.
So when it gets started, you have 2 elevated to 0. What is that? Well, everything elevated to 0 is 1.
Yeah.
No, where was it? Yes, exactly. So if you have a 1, then it's 2 elevated to, yeah, it was like that. I think I can. Because if you have nothing, then you have nothing. You have 0.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you elevate to 1, and then that's a 1. No, sorry, apologies. Now
I, I
you
think
have
I just broke
you have
you,
1.
dude,
You have
with
1,
the
then
question.
that's, yeah, it's a complicated number system. I'm trying to think and it's not made for humans. That's the thing. It's not made for humans. It's made
Yeah,
for,
yeah. It's made for computers, basically. So
exactly. And computers can understand each other like that. Like you and me, we're speaking English, right? That, and we're speaking, and me explaining the decimal number system was super easy, and you understood it very easy because that's for
yeah,
for humans. It's made for humans. But binary, trying to explain it and understand it, it's anyway, it's a different whole. But
it,
anyway,
it's a
we can
different
think
world.
of it. It's just the language of machines for numbers.
Yeah.
Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's 0, 1, 0, 1. But it represents the same numbers. It's just it
Okay.
uses more positions. Um, so that, yeah, I guess the best way would be to like look at an image, because that's the thing. In Spanish, we have a
Yeah.
saying. It's like um, an image is worth 1,000 words. And in this
Yeah.
case, that's it.
Okay. And in a sense, then, but also, I mean, when we come to mathematics and science in general and physics, that connects beautiful to Bitcoin. When you look at numbers, especially with miners, and how that all works and the hash rates, and when you want to send Bitcoin from one world to the other, how long it's gonna take, and then what's not the seed phrase, the transaction ID, I think it's called, and everything.
Yeah.
Um, and that's all mathematics, and that's also computers talking to each other in a different language, perhaps, maybe in binary even, but who knows? No. So how would you then argue that that connects to Bitcoin? Is it a mathematical purpose that goes back to Bitcoin, or what would you describe it as when it comes to Bitcoin?
Well, because Bitcoin, because machines, they run on, so humans, we run on laws, so to speak,
Hmm.
right? Our operating system is laws. They tell us what to do, what not to do. Some
Yeah.
of us, we have our internal laws of like, hey, I myself, regardless of what the world says, I am not willing to take someone's life. I am not willing to steal from someone, right? Stuff
Mm.
like that. That's my own personal laws. That's something that I like guide myself with. But then on a societal scale, because right, this works for me, but perhaps you have a different set. You have a different set of laws, and perhaps in your set, you are allowed to sometimes kick someone or hit someone or take their property sometimes because hey, there's cases where it could be the right thing. I don't know, right? It could be right, and perhaps that's
Yeah.
your loss, and perhaps in mine it's no, right? Like there's never a case, right? And there's lots of philosophy around that. But the thing is, once you want to scale that into uh, society, like thousands of people, dozens
Mhm.
of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, and for all of them to like collaborate and like live with each other in relative peace or mostly peace, right? We cannot just rely on everyone having the same system. We need to somehow like set them in stone, like, hey, these actions are not permitted, these actions are frowned upon and like penalized, but not to the same extent. And these actions are the good actions. Like everything else you can do, right? Um, that's how we humans collaborate with each other. But of course, money is a technology. Money is the technology that enables us to like collaborate in larger scales on a market basis. Uh, and as we know, money has been, let's say, corrupted, has been co-opted into serving a different purpose, or an additional purpose, let's say, the purpose of also like controlling us and
Yeah.
stealing from us in a subtle way that we can't notice. So
Taxes.
exactly, inflation, tax. But see, taxes is more based on the laws, on the written laws, on like
Yeah, yeah,
kind of.
yeah. But
But inflation, that's just like,
oh
hey,
yeah,
we can just make more units of this without you giving or taking away consent. We can just do it, right? Uh, and that's because money, it's a physical. Until now, it's been a physical technology, but because it's not like really you can just print money. There's like we could put laws that say, hey, printing new money is bad, or
yeah,
printing or you or some people can print money and others can, but then that's laws. But money, like the technology, it's it's free for all of us to use and to act according to what to the physical laws. But once we go digital, because you can make a law that hey, sending messages to North Korea is illegal, but try to stop someone from sending an email to that address or sending a or creating a file, putting it on a USB stick and sending it over balloon to North Korea, right? Try to stop that because yeah, you could like cut all the cables, you could really like isolate the entire nation, but you can still get information in and using computers, right? Using digitalizing it and using computers. And once we want to take money from the physical world into the digital world and preserve the qualities that we like while stripping away the qualities we don't like, that's where numbers come in. That's where the binary comes in. And that's also and it's actually the properties leveraged through well not leveraged through, but like the whole proof of work, the whole thing that makes mining like Bitcoin work, and also creates the mining industry, which is the one that I work in, rests on 256 bits. Bits being positions that you can choose if there's a zero or a one to represent a number. Like the entire industry is represented or is supported by 256 bits. That's it. The entire system, it's defended and it's created every day by this 256 bits of binary data, of numbers. A number represented in computer. Because once you go into digital world, the human laws they don't matter anymore. As we showcased with the example of sending data to Korea, the only thing that matters is the zeros and ones, the yes or no. Are you allowed or are you not allowed, so to speak? So that's how I see it relating to Bitcoin. The fact that Bitcoin, due to it being a digital technology, it relies on this binary number system, but then also the Boolean logic that comes out of it to like express things that are more complex than just one yes or no, one or zero. That's
yeah.
called Boolean logic.
And also the power law in a sense, because if you want to calculate, let's say I'm a, I don't know, a high profile hedge fund and I want to use Bitcoin for my own money purposes, I also have to calculate how much money I will make and using the power law, obviously, or using like certain laws or certain you know, calculations, that's all. That's also mathematics. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're the hardware or even with hodling, when you hodl like one third of your Bitcoin portfolio, I mean, how much will that be worth like in 20 years time? You don't know that unless you calculate it, right? That's the beautiful thing with mathematics and Bitcoin, especially when you're a nerd like I am when it comes to mathematics. I mean, there are like so many scenarios. I actually asked AI about like what can happen in like 20 years time, like from war and everything. And I was like, okay, fair enough. World War Three, what's gonna be Bitcoin's position like in 20 years time when World War Three hits? I don't know. And I'm like always calculating like each step. Okay, that much, and then that much, and then these much, and okay, it's gonna be worth this and this. And that's the beautiful thing about maths. It's not always right, but it can lead to a right way in a sense. That's
Well,
what I assume.
how to say it? It's not that it's not right or wrong. It's more like, is it going to happen or is it not? In the sense of
Yeah,
like, you can
exactly.
calculate all of these scenarios without them actually playing out. Like, you don't need to like create a time machine to go to the future and see how the world
No.
worked and then see how Bitcoin worked. You can just have a few assumptions, put them through the mathematical models that you decide, like interest rates, GDP per capita,
Yeah.
destruction of capital due to the war, all of that, and then get some results. You can get some results, and you didn't need to like actually perform a third world war, thankfully, to
No,
like
but as an example, yeah.
yeah, to actually see how that would look like. That's the magic of maths. It's the abstraction that it enables you.
So yeah. Okay, cool. Now, when we talk about maths, that's also one of many questions I have. Um, but it's all fine. It's fine when you don't want to answer any question, or if you like all the questions I have for you. But when it comes to mining, then you said you're in the mining industry. How
Mhm.
much electricity then do you guys use on a regular daily basis? And especially how do you calculate that? And also, first of all, for people who don't know what is mining exactly, and how does that connect to Bitcoin? Because that's also really important when we look at hash rates and mining and how that everything works when you buy, for example, Bitcoin, how they're mined and etc. So, can you please maybe explain like a background of mining, and then
Yeah,
also how you calculate like the average volts that you use on a regular daily basis?
yeah. So mining people think that Bitcoin was the invention of Satoshi Nakamoto, and it was the biggest one. But in my opinion, it wasn't just like mining per se. Like in a way, I see like Bitcoin per se. The way I see it, like the guy who invented the first engine, that's a great invention. That's awesome. But the next greatest invention, which has literally moved the entire world and like is used every day by hundreds of millions of
Yeah,
people, is when someone got that engine, put it with like seats, steering wheel, and rubber tires, and said car, and this is a car, and that's it. Because you could use an engine on a railway, on a train, but then your possibilities of movement and the space of freedom that you have was very diminished, right? The amount of things you could do was very diminished. But like when you put it all together, that already awesome, incredible innovation, the engine, you put it together with these other inventions like um, steering wheel and rubber tires, and well, of course, a seat and like the whole like look and feel of the car. That's when it becomes truly incredible, right? Uh, and in that sense, yes, Bitcoin would be like the engine, but for me, I think the most incredible thing is that this engine, this idea of like a limited, uncensorable money with a predetermined monetary schedule has been paired with with this other great technology, which is proof of work. Proof of work is the true invention, in my opinion. Or actually, the invention is kind of like joining these two: the idea of Bitcoin and the technology of proof of work, joining them together. And okay, the question is, okay, but what is proof of work? For that, you need to know what SHA-256 is and how it works. It's basically like throwing dice and seeing what comes out. You don't know what the result is going to be before you throw the dice, but once you have thrown the dice, it's very easy to check what comes out. Then you also need to understand that every time that you throw the dice in the same way in this digital thing, you will get the same result. So it's kind of like a mix between a Sudoku and a Rubik's Cube and a dice. Like it's random. The result is random. Like you don't know what's gonna happen before you do it. but it's deterministic. So if every time you get the same Sudoku, you will get the same answer, right? And unlike a Rubik's Cube, once you've solved it, it's very easy to see if it's solved, right? Like, hey, are all of the faces of the cube one color? Yes, perfect, you solved it. And that's how SHA-256 works. You get a random thing. And then using the binary, using binary numbering system, we check the so SHA-256 always spits out a number of a fixed length of 256 bits or positions that can be 0 or 1. Then what we do is we check the first couple positions to see if they have zeros. And if they have zeros, then if they have enough zeros, then they become a Bitcoin block. So Bitcoin block is not really solving complex equations because SHA-256, I mean, it's a long, so SHA-256 is a simple equation, so to speak, compared to other mathematical problems, right? It's not like calculating the position of the stars on this day or like the interaction between three planetary bodies. It's not some crazy thing with lots of equations. No, just one simple equation that anyone can search up how it works. Anyone can use it online at any point. Like you can actually go online and search SHA-256 and start typing stuff and see the results. You can see the equations, and it's very done very quickly. And what miners do is they constantly keep crunching numbers, looking for a random result that will have enough zeros at the beginning. So, because when you have enough zeros at the beginning, that's when you're rewarded with like you have found a correct solution, a valid solution actually. So in a way, it would be almost like you have 20 dice and you need to keep throwing them until all of them have a one. Like you throw a dice that shows all ones, right? Um, but of course, before you throw the dice, you don't know if it's gonna be if that's the one that you're gonna get it in, right? That's the
Yeah.
throw. So you have to keep doing it. You have to keep doing it because also you cannot just like cheat the dice. You cannot like you cannot reverse engineer SHA-256. You cannot say, "Oh, I want this result," and then, "Oh, what do I need? Like, I want to have a pizza. Okay, what are the ingredients I need to make a pizza?" Right? No, you just keep throwing. Right? There's no way to reverse engineer it. You cannot say I want 20 zeros at the beginning, or like, well, in binary would be something like 80 zeros at the beginning. 80 out of the 256 positions, I want them to be a zero at the beginning, and consecutively, like one after the other. I want that. You cannot. It's not like you can search for a recipe. It's not like, oh yeah, you need to put this number and this and this and this and crunch it, and that's what it is, and that's how you
Yeah.
get it. No, you need to keep trying. You need to keep trying. So did what? But this is how it works per se. Like this is the technical definition of how it works. But what it means, what it ends up translating to, is that every block mined, every block created, went through this process of 100,000 million attempts. Nowadays, it's actually many more than that. But anyway, hundreds of thousands of attempts at the beginning, millions of attempts afterwards, and now trillions of attempts per second to find the block every 10 minutes. Of course, these calculations, they're used with electrons, right? They're computers. Computers
Yeah.
that use electrons to make them work.
I just wanted to say when you described like how it just comes out as like multiple scenarios where you have to find like multiple numbers. It's like it sounded to me like when you collide atoms together and then or like particles together and then that creates like a huge explosion and then there you go. Then like every particle's there and there. There but sorry for interrupting you. But that's what just happened in my mind. Like when you
Okay, okay. Feel free to like. What do you mean with that?
like when you described the process, you know how they have to find numbers and how uh you didn't say collide with each other. What did you say?
No, crunch, I guess.
Crunch into each other. It's like with particles. You know, in CERN, in
Yeah,
Geneva, they shoot particles at each
yeah,
other and they collide to see how they
yeah.
would react and how the universe was probably created, or and that's actually similar when you look at it. But maybe sorry, it's a random thought I just had in my head
Don't worry,
because
don't worry.
I'm passionate about science, but go on, please.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Um, anyway, yeah. So going back to the topic at hand. Um, so what this actually means is that in order to like throw these dice, in order to like have these attempts, you need to make
Yeah,
machines run, and machines, well, you need to do work. I mean, you could do it by hand if you want to. I don't recommend it because you would be hyper inefficient. It would be like trying to like walk to the US from the US to Australia. Good luck, right? Can you do it? I bet, I
no,
guess someone could try, like some crazy guy. Could you just take a ship or a plane? Yes. Is that hundred thousands of millions of times more efficient? Also, yes, right? And this is the same. Yes, you can also like try it by hand. Not recommended. Rather do it with machines. But regardless, what it means is that you need to use energy. Like you cannot make a machine run without energy. And even if you did it by hand, you're using energy. You're using calories. You have to eat in order to like perform those actions. So, right. So at that point, you are creating a direct relationship between this block in the Bitcoin blockchain with the coins that were generated because each block generates new coins. That's how the Bitcoins get created. Um, so because the miner, when they find a block, they have spent a lot of energy.
yeah,
They need to be rewarded in order to pay for that energy because they're going to have a bill at the end of the month. They're going to need to pay that, and then they get rewarded with bitcoins. And the difference between their costs and their like the cost of the electricity and how much bitcoin they got, that's their profit, right? Um, and with this, what you create is a direct link between Bitcoin, like the creation of bitcoins, and energy. And energy cannot be faked. You can fake having millions of dollars. People do that all the time. People go into debt to make it look like they have the latest car and the best house, but in reality, they're
yeah.
drowning in debt. But you cannot fake energy. You cannot
Nope.
fake, hey, I have this. Like it's like almost like building muscles. If you see someone that is very ripped on the streets, that is like full of muscles, very strong, he had to go to the gym one way or another. He had to do sport one way or another. Oh, but what if he used steroids? Even if he used steroids, if you just use
Still,
steroids and do nothing, they will not work as well. Not to say that mostly they will not work. You need to, even if you're using steroids, you need to go to the gym and like work out and lift heavy stuff, right? And
yeah,
that is a proof. That's proof that you have done work, that you have expended energy. And the same with Bitcoin. If you have Bitcoins, if you have mined Bitcoins, you're proving by inherently, like just by the mere fact that you have those muscles, you're proving that you went to the gym, that you exercised. The same happens with Bitcoin. The mere fact that this
yeah.
block was created proves that you spent energy. And then in regards to the question of how much energy we use, I personally am not in the Bitcoin mining space directly. We are actually building a pool with
Okay,
Demand. That's the company that I'm with right now. That's the logo behind me on the background. And we're building a pool that helps miners mine Bitcoin more, let's say, effectively.
okay,
And in regards to how much electricity Bitcoin mining, the industry or the industry uses at this point, I don't know what's the latest numbers. I think it's got to be something like, what was it, 40 terawatt hours a year or something. Like,
okay.
sounds like a lot, and it kind of is a lot, but it's also nothing compared to how much electricity is wasted every year. Like when you look at, like for example, the entire state of Alberta. No, was it Alberta? No, no, no. Quebec, Quebec in
Quebec, yeah.
Canada. They have a lot. Like they have so much hydropower that just with the hydropower that they waste, so not use, they just flush it out. They just burn money. They waste energy. Just with that, they could power the entire Bitcoin network, the entire Bitcoin mining industry, just themselves with the energy that they waste. So, yes, Bitcoin mining uses a lot of energy, but when put in context, you realize it's not that crazy.
or also I mean the banking system, how much energy does that use? I mean, those servers which have to be like cooled down to like negative 20 degrees Celsius, like which are like on the lower floors of like I don't know where, somewhere in the building, you know, like that also requires energy. I mean, they always say like Bitcoin is like using so much energy and miners are like useless and they cost you a lot of money
Well,
at the end of the
even
month.
even worse than that, how is the dollar system? Look, I have the data here right now. I just searched it up. It's 182 terawatt hours. So that's the
Okay.
amount in total. But on
Okay.
a hour to hour basis, how much we're actually consuming, it's approximately 20.86 gigawatts. So 21 gigawatts. Finally enough, 21. Um, so that would be equivalent to like, I think that Spain uses about 30 to 35. So that's like two-thirds of
Okay.
what Spain uses on any day. But of course, this is distributed across the entire world. And we got to
Yeah.
remember, just Quebec in Canada wastes more energy than what the Bitcoin industry uses, right? So that's a
It,
part.
it's the same shit with wars. I mean, how much energy does war require? I mean,
The
how much
dollar.
energy does the U.S. Army require like every week, or how much does Russia now require with their war between Ukraine and Russia? You know, uh, I mean that also is a lot of energy that is used there for a stupid reason. I mean, if you want to say
Yeah.
physical energy as well, like humans as well, because we're also energy. I mean, that's also you know that's also a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And for me, it's always interesting, especially with new laws coming into place, especially in Europe. Um, how are you guys prepared, like energy wise? Are you, like you also have to pay like for bills and stuff and energy as well. I mean, is that a huge process behind it, or are you like, oh, yeah, let's just pay it and get on with it, and then next month same shit, you know? So because for I know a lot of people which mine Bitcoin, they're always like, oh, but it costs so much energy, and we have like huge bills at the end of the month. I'm like, yeah, but you're mining your own Bitcoin. That's the cool thing at the side, at the end of the month, you're gaining energy, you're gaining Bitcoin, and Bitcoin miners are also like when they mine Bitcoin, they get really hot, right? So you could use that heat basically to heat your house. You know, it's always a win-win situation. So how do you guys deal with that stuff? Because I have a lot of
Well,
people with
it's not always a win-win situation actually. Everyone has to, as I said before, it's a very personal decision. It's a business decision.
it.
Um, you can choose to basically mine Bitcoin if the electricity prices look right.
Yeah,
Uh, and if they don't look right, you can also choose to run Bitcoin mining. But at that
yeah,
point, you will be running Bitcoin mining at a loss. So it's your personal decision. You decide personally if you mine Bitcoin and if it's worth it to you, like from a financial perspective or from an ideological perspective, right? There's many people that do solo mining, like they have one, two, three machines at home, and they spend $500 on electricity, but they get back 450 in Bitcoin.
yeah,
They
exactly.
lost
That's it.
money, but they do it because of, well, technically lost money. But of course, we all know they exchanged fiat for euros, so you really won. And that's the way they look at it. They don't look at it on a month to month basis. They look at it on a, hey, I don't want this money. I don't want these euros. Uh, give me Bitcoin, right? And I'm
Mhm.
willing to buy them at a loss, like a fee, right? And that's one type of Bitcoiner, but then, or miner, I would say. But then there's also the more like institutional miners, like big players that have a lot of capital invested. They have huge energy bills. Like I'm talking millions upon millions of dollars every month, right?
Yeah,
And they also do their own decision, make their own decisions. But of course, because they are corporations and they are, let's say, they're looking out for shareholder value, they're not in the business of losing money, right?
yeah,
So they will have a different decision matrix, and especially them, they are the ones who are the most interested in finding cheap electricity and financing that cheap electricity. By financing, I mean like, hey, you guys have cheap electricity because there's an abundance of energy here. So you're basically competing to the ground against each other. Let us come in and instead of like you getting 1 cent per kilowatt hour, let me give you 3 cents per kilowatt hour
Yep.
because you're in the middle of nowhere in a desert. No fucking hospital is gonna go there and set up shop. No data center is gonna go there because it's too far away from civilization. Um, but we will go there and we will finance you. We will pay you for that energy, and we will pay you a much better price than what you're finding locally, for example.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's how it works.
Okay. And then, European wise, when it comes to mining, are there, or generally when it comes to mining, are there still some issues? Because that's always interesting. I mean, or when you would look at the new laws set in place by the EU, especially with Bitcoin and crypto, um, are you guys then also worried about some times in the future that they might be tried that the EU especially might tries to over-regulate miners as well, like they do with Bitcoin and now finance in general? I mean, we have a cow in the European Union which thinks that a CBDC is something great, which it isn't, but that's a different topic. But do you think that there might be a over-regulation soon happening, especially with miners as well?
Yes, but no. It's tough to give a blanket statement on
Yeah,
everything, especially because some countries are actually starting to embrace Bitcoin. I'm seeing it here in Spain, like after the blackouts we had a month ago, 2 months ago at this point. Um, People have started to like wake up, no, right? Like like, hey, we need solutions and nothing's off the table. But
yeah,
then other countries like Norway are thinking about a complete total ban on Bitcoin mining, and countries like Sweden, they implemented a tax, a heavy tax, like it was something like 100% tax on energy for if you're doing Bitcoin mining. So is the EU going to like block or prohibit Bitcoin mining? I don't know, but it for sure is not looking good. Like it's not looking good. That's the main thing I would say. I would not bet on Europe at this point. We have cool
no.
people, great people working to like make sure that doesn't happen, or at least try to mitigate as much as possible. But yeah, they have a lot of work. They have their work cut out for themselves. I
It
mean,
it
talking about the EBA, European Bitcoin Energy Association,
yeah.
which they're doing a great job, but like it's a beast. The EU is a beast. It's very big and it's very bureaucratic. So anyway, we'll see.
That's the thing, bureaucracy. That's the main issue. And it's funny, the EU even says they are over regulating themselves. Oh gosh, I hope not, I'm not gonna get banned or cancelled for this statement, but um and they even say it openly. And when you claim that, or tell them, hey, that's too much, they're like, oh yeah, here you go, fine for you, or here you go, fuck you, that's like the main issue with Europe. They're like this over regulating. And how would they even know if I would have a miner? That's like my just like my thought. If I would mine
Well,
Bitcoin, how would they?
they wouldn't know it on an individual level, but what they can do is they can impose lots of problems for anyone trying to do it on an industrial scale
Ah,
or
yeah,
in a
well,
business way. You cannot like they will literally have to go house by house if they
yeah,
want to like properly prohibit it. But if they just make it impossible for someone to run a Bitcoin mining business, that's already good enough for them.
yeah. So, but yeah, we will see. I'm just curious what's gonna happen like in 10 years time when I'm like older, have like children, and then how the world will look. Either we're all dead or maybe we're all alive. Who knows? If those crazy maniacs don't start World War III like in a few months. So, but yeah, Knobs, one last question for you before I'm gonna let you go. Where
Mhm.
can people find you actually?
Yeah.
Social media wise, are you on Twitter? I assume that's like where most Bitcoiners are. Are you on Nostr, LinkedIn, Instagram? Where can
Yeah,
people find you?
I'm on Nostr, General Kenobi.
Okay.
I'm not too online there right now. Still waiting for it to get a bit better, but like I'm there every now and then. I'll post something, I'll check it out, see what's going on there. I mean, I
Yeah.
recently joined up, like relogged in, or yeah, checked it out after 6 or 7 months of like inactivity or like not checking it out, and I was honestly surprised by how much it had advanced. So that was pretty cool. Um,
Okay.
so like I'm looking forward to seeing how Nostr looks like in 5 years, right? Or even in 1 year. So
Yeah.
Nostr, General Kenobi. In Twitter, they can find me by Kenobi General 5. And otherwise, they can follow my work at Demand. We're
Okay.
building the first fully Stratum V2 pool out there, decentralizing Bitcoin mining. So yeah, they can find us there.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, dear people, that was another episode of Noma Podcast. I hope it was not too much like information-wise because I think we bombarded people. But that's always good, for the nerds out there who love mathematics as I do and as you do, Canopes, and especially mining. It's not going to be an issue. But for all the regular people, thank you for joining us today. And Canopes, see you soon. Bye.
Bye. See ya.
Nomad Podcast.